Hello, I'm Deb Calvert, and I'm delighted that you're here with me today. I've got a big topic, a lot to cover. We're going to move pretty quick through this one. So, down there in the attachments, I've given you a copy of the slides that I'll be using. And if you want to download those for note taking, feel free. There are a few more of them than there usually are in these monthly presentations. I welcome your questions at any time during the presentation. If you're here with me live, go ahead and post those. I'll take them as they come. If you have questions for me later on, just reach out to me on social media. I've given you a link to connect on LinkedIn with me, or feel free to email me as well. I always enjoy the follow-up conversations after these presentations. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and jump right in because, as I said, we've got a massive topic today. This topic is about increasing your personal effectiveness. We'll define what that is, and then we will talk about 10 habits that you can build that will amp up your personal effectiveness. And then I'll give you a one-size-fits-all solution. The one thing I know of that can help you with developing all of those habits and amping up your personal effectiveness very efficiently. For those I haven't met before, I'm Deb Calvert. I'm the president of People First Productivity Solutions, and I enjoy very much getting acquainted with people like you after these presentations. I just really look forward to the follow-on conversations that we can have. I've given you some information in the attachments if you'd want to connect with me, or if you'd like to explore what else we have to offer here at People First Productivity Solutions. But I'm not going to take much time to refer back to those attachments today because, as I said, we've got a lot to cover, and we're going to start right now. This is what's known as the Effectiveness Continuum. And I built this based on work that I've done coaching a lot of different folks in a lot of different types of jobs. People who are not sure what's in the way sometimes of them being able to accomplish everything they want to accomplish. So I'd like you to look at this diagram as an illustration of personal effectiveness and to show you where leaders at every level sometimes go astray. Those 6 items you see on the left, each of those 6 rows, that gives you an opportunity to evaluate yourself and the ways that you respond, the ways that you behave, so that you can determine how effective you might be. In any one of those rows, there's an ineffective response. Take the first one, level of control. In a situation, how much in control do you feel? If you feel completely out of control, well, you already know that that's not going to be effective. If you're feeling in control, that is a measure of effectiveness. That's certainly better than being out of control. But what you want to be aiming for to demonstrate your leadership and to be even more effective is in the third column. As a leader, you'd be so in control that in fact you'd be sharing control. And you know that you've overextended, you've gone a little too far. If you find yourself in the far right column, where in this case, when it comes to the control level, you're dominating, you're over exercising your authority, and you are not sharing the control any longer, but you have gone just a little bit too far. So each of these, when I say effective, what I'm talking about is in those middle 2 rows of effective and striving for being a leader. That is the place where you have the most opportunity to be effective long-term with high impact in ways that grow your own and others' capacity, competence, and confidence. I wanted to show you that first because that's what we're aiming for. Don't forget, in the attachments, you can find these slides because I'm going to be whizzing through some of them pretty quickly. And I hope you like what you see enough that you want to ask some questions and that you want to take advantage of the opportunity of downloading those slides there. All right, well, the next thing to think about is, who is it then? If we're talking about effective, who is that? What is that? When people are asked to describe what they think makes others effective, Here are some of the most common responses: intelligence, experience, hard work, creativity or imagination, past achievements, or having a lot of resources or being resourceful in using them. Now, these are quite similar to traits that we often value in leaders, but the truth is that people can be all these things. They can be smart and accomplished and dedicated and efficient, but still have difficulties getting work done. You see, effectiveness is a separate learned behavior. It doesn't come automatically, even to people who have all of these qualities and more. You probably know people, in fact, maybe it's you, but people who exhibit these qualities and yet are never fully effective. They aren't able to complete things in ways that are reaching the full potential that that project or initiative might have had at its opportunity if it had been fully effectively implemented. And then on the other hand, you probably know someone, maybe it's you, who always seems to get things done and gets them done quickly and gets them done well. In fact, those folks, it almost looks like they're doing things without effort. How do they do that? Well, one secret is that they know the difference between being efficient and being effective. So let's talk about that. You know, in times like these where there's a focus on rapid change, and as always, there's a focus on cost efficiencies and time efficiencies. So we all, it seems like, have a pressure to do more in less time. And so we make the mistake of thinking that being efficient is what we have to do, working faster, cutting corners, multitasking. We end up doing some things that take us down the wrong path. But if you really want to cope with rapid change and remain efficient, the only way to do that is by being effective, by thinking about the outcomes, by thinking about not only getting things done more quickly, but getting things done right. Because you know the old maxim, if you don't have time to do it right once, you certainly don't have time to do it wrong multiple times. So efficiency depends on effectiveness. In fact, there's a cause and effect. Effectiveness leads to efficiency, not the other way around. One last element of this definition that I should bring out is that there's really no such thing as an effective personality. Effective people have all sorts of temperaments. Effective people come from all different backgrounds and levels of experience and places and companies and industries. There's no particular group that is known to be more effective than another. What I'm trying to tell you is that effectiveness is something within our grasp for each and every one of us. So, what they do have in common, people who are effective, are the habits or the practices that they employ, the choices they make in their day-to-day routines. So, what I want to share with you now are 10 habits that will make you more effective. Please keep in mind that we're moving fast. I could build more on every single one of these habits, but I want to just give you some place to start with a reminder that habits always take at least 15 to 30 days to develop. So if you see something here that applies for you that you think could be useful for you, I want to encourage you to give yourself some grace and some space to be able to develop that habit. And best of all, just tackle one at a time. It takes 15 to 30 days to build one habit. Go easy on yourself and tuck the other ones away for later on. So these habits of being more effective, here's a roll-up of them. And you can see here that there's not one single thing that requires special education or some sort of PhD level work. They're just habits. These are just simple, easy things that you want to build in until they become your instant, regular response. You may have some bad habits or some things that keep you from enlisting these habits, that they're in your way. So on your 15 to 30-day effort to build a habit, you'll also eradicate the one that's an obstacle. And you may also have some self-perceptions or some barriers that are in your way. And if so, well, you can work on those too to be able to build your confidence as you're building the habit. Now, after we review these 10 habits one by one, I'm going to give you a tool that helps with every single one of these. And that tool is asking better, higher quality questions. So let's take these one by one. The first one is to evaluate your choices wisely. You know, any decision that you ever make is a judgment. It's a choice between alternatives. And most choices are not just about right or wrong. Usually, they just happen to be two different courses of action. And to make things even more complex, we often have more than two choices to evaluate. So here are some ideas for building a habit that will help you evaluate your choices more wisely. And by the way, in the Connect to Lead newsletter, we are talking right now, week to week, about information overload and sources and how to evaluate your choices more wisely. And over on the YouTube channel, we've got a playlist called No More Lazy Thinking that dives into 39 different aspects of this. So there's a lot of places you can go for more information that will help you. But let me just give you the high-level overview. If you start with opinions, yours and those of others, and you treat those opinions as opinions, not as facts, that's going to give you an opportunity to gauge how much emotion you're dealing with, your own and others. And it will liberate other members of your team, others who have some input, to say what they're thinking and feeling right from the start. And then, because you've separated them, then you can boil down the facts. And you can contrast the facts to the opinions and the emotions. And having sorted it all out will help you not get swept up by the emotions. And as you're listening to both opinions and facts, you're going to really think about what's relevant, not just what is heated or on someone's mind in the moment. You're just going to be very discerning here. And you'll ask questions, more about that in a moment, to be sure about these choices, to make sure that you don't get into any absolutism. Sometimes we do that when we're evaluating choices. We think it has to be purely either or, when in fact, we might have multiple ways to bring things together. And if you aren't already doing this, something I strongly recommend is to insist on some healthy, productive disagreement. Get someone to play devil's advocate if needed. You really want to be sure that you're getting a mix of ideas before you land on any choice too quickly. You want a variety of opinions, you want some good discussion, you want to be able to tap into emotions and creativity and press people to offer new ideas. And when you do that, everybody is more likely to feel heard, including you. Even if this is just a conversation you're having with yourself, you're going to give airtime to all the aspects of it. And that's going to help you make a more thorough, thoughtful evaluation of your choices. Do this by habit, and you'll find that you are becoming more aware and more big picture about almost everything you think about. Okay, habit number 2 may sound very obvious, but it's an important thing that we often forget. Leaders sometimes forget that credibility is actually the very foundation, that the cornerstone of leadership. And people rely on you. They rely on you making sure that what you say and what you do are in alignment, and they rely on you to explain your decisions in a logical manner, using facts, not just emotions, as the basis for your decision. And they rely on you to be confident and comfortable enough with your own decisions to take and answer their questions about it. So when you're speaking credibly, you might want to avoid words like maybe or I think or I was just wondering. Instead, speak decisively to inspire confidence. And don't dilute the effectiveness of your decisions by trying to please all people all the time. Know that you'll just never ever be able to accomplish that, and then handle it correctly versus trying to appease people with your decisions. Of course, as you're doing this, you're going to credibly acknowledge and address the risks. You're going to go beyond the obvious to let people know you've heard them and you've thought about what they had to say. And you're going to have done enough work in habit number 1 that you can cover all the bases when you're making a decision or when you're explaining your actions. When you're talking about a new course of action, for example, you'll do it clearly. You'll do it concisely because less is more. You don't want to hide information, but you also don't have to go into great detail unless others need and want to know. This one might need a little explanation. So, leaders, they don't use merely insight. They don't rely just on their gut instincts or just what they already know. They also have foresight. They ask questions like, what's new? What's next? What if? And they do that because they are anticipating changes and they're looking for opportunities. They're always troubleshooting. They're aware of future trends. They keep themselves informed. They listen to other people's opinions, even the ones that are way out there on the horizon. And you want to do that as well, not occasionally, but as a matter of routine, a habit. I'm going fast. Don't forget, the attachments are where you'll find these slides so that you can come back and do a deeper dive or be in touch with me on anything at all that you want to discuss a little bit more. But I'm really just reviewing some things that you probably already know make people highly effective. And after we talk about what makes people highly effective, I'm going to give you one tool that helps with every single one of these habits. So here's habit number 4 out of the 10 I'm sharing with you. And that is that people who are really effective, they deal with their problems. And they deal with those problems confidently and swiftly. So what I have there on the left-hand side of the slide, those are 5 types of problems. Maybe you've never thought about the fact that problems can be bucketed into problem types, but knowing the difference can help you prioritize problems and set expectations regarding what you need to solve the problem and who needs to be involved. Let me just give you a quick run through. A factual problem, this is the easiest. A factual problem does have an answer that's right or wrong. It's based on facts. We just need to get the information, and then we can resolve this problem. An operational problem, that's any sort of problem that pertains to systems or work practices, processes, technology. The problems here, especially if they recur, they can run really deep. It might take a long time to analyze this type of problem and correct each layer. Because it's so big and because it seems like it might take such a long time, unfortunately, what we often do with operational problems is rather than solving them, we just admire them. You go into meeting after meeting and you admire the problem, you talk about it, but there's never any action, never any deliberate action to break it down and to work on the piece parts and chip away at the operational problem. The third type of problem is tactical. This typically is going to be something that's supporting your goals. So you've got a goal, you want to meet your goal, and there's something tactical I can't get access to a resource. I have not got enough time. I need to learn how. Right? These are tactical problems, and you do want to anticipate these and solve them early on so that you won't be at risk of not meeting your goals. Next up is strategic. These problems that are strategic, these are related to the organization's broadest goals, the mission, the vision, the strat plan. And just like tactical problems related to your own goals, if there are strategic problems like we're doing something that violates our company's values and that puts our reputation at risk, and then we won't be able to reach our strategic goal of growing by X% over the next 3 years. Right? Something like that also needs to be addressed quickly and fully so that the organization's strategic goals are not at risk. Last but not least are people problems. And the majority of problems that frontline managers deal with happen to be people related. These problems are about hiring, firing, moving, restructuring, promoting, motivating, coaching, and everything in between there. Every single one of those types of decisions and those problems has an impact on a person or perhaps an entire team. So with any of the 5 types of problems, you want to stabilize and you want to look for deeper roots, and you want to make sure that you're exhibiting confidence when tackling these problems. That confidence comes from your ability to gauge the urgency of the problem and to respond appropriately, and to being committed to solving the problem, even if you don't have all the answers about exactly what to do that would be a solution. Okay, number 5, in order to be effective, you must be willing to make a mistake. And that may sound like a shocker, but it's absolutely true. You have to be willing to make a mistake, and you have to be willing to address that mistake with integrity, honorably. You know, in this fast-paced, hurry-up world, sometimes we all have to act before we're certain of the outcome. So what happens is that sometimes people avoid acting at all because they're afraid of what will happen if they fail or if they make a mistake. Ultimately, if we're telling the truth here, what we're really afraid of is what people will think about us or what people will say. And what we forget, even in the glaring spotlight that a mistake feels like, is that everyone makes them. Everyone makes mistakes, and that's okay. Mistakes are an opportunity to learn. You will grow and you will become more effective if you occasionally make mistakes. So don't worry so much about people liking all of your ideas. They'll be impressed that you have ideas, whether they like them or not. Now we're moving fast, and I've only covered 5 out of the 10 habits. I'm going to take the next 5 a little quicker so that I budget time well enough to give you the one-size-fits-all solution, how to ask better questions. And by the way, in future sessions that we're doing here monthly, we're going to dive into some of these issues quite a bit more deeply. The next one, I've given you a link in the attachment so you can sign up. That is about problem solving, and we'll be taking that the first week in June. So let's take care of these next 5 habits that will make you more effective. Number 6 is to keep yourself under control. When you lose self-control, that's actually rather frightening or jarring to others. How I'm defining self-control is the ability to limit your expression to that which is appropriate to the person, time, and place. This is not meant to dismiss your feelings. We've all got them. But it's to remind you that you have a choice sometimes. Should I be emotional or do I want to be effective? Emotion is something that you may choose to use and display at a different time or in a different way. Let your decision be fueled by the thought process, the habit of asking yourself, do I want to display this emotion right now? And if so, why? Or do I want to take a deep breath and be effective in this situation? And will my emotion serve to make me more effective or less effective? Habit number 7 has to do with something very similar, which is about being self-aware. If you've never done any work with emotional intelligence, there are some very, very good assessments out there. In fact, some that don't cost a penny. And most of them focus on this being one of the components of emotional intelligence. Being self-aware of how others perceive you and self-aware about how your actions impact others. And you have to be very honest with yourself to be self-aware. It's a good idea to occasionally pause and reflect and think about how you can become more self-aware. We're going to talk about another habit, and that is being courageous. But before we go there, I want to let you know that there's a whole other webinar that I recently did about this topic just last month. That one's called Taking Risks and Failing Forward. And like everything in this series of presentations that I'm doing this year, it goes deeper into issues that could help you boost your personal effectiveness. So this one's a direct hit on something that we've done before, and it's all about understanding what risk is and then being courageous even in the face of risk. And this little 4-point process will help you. It's about pinpointing what the problem is or what the decision is, taking action even though you got some fear, outlining ahead of time what the potential consequences might be and preparing for those, handling those as they come, and tracking your progress along the way. When you are being effective, you are also going to accept criticism graciously as a gift, as something someone is giving you in an effort to help you improve. People who are effective don't suddenly become immune to errors. People who are effective do have to still receive feedback from others. In fact, they want it, they invite it, because they know that this is the only way they can continue to get better. So they ask for feedback, even feedback that's going to feel critical, feedback that's going to hurt, and they ask questions to get to the specifics of it, and they look for ways to put into action the good ideas that people have given them. And with their self-awareness and some of the other habits that they're building, this becomes much, much easier. Last but not least in our 10 habits is to habitually, all the time, be a team player, not just sometimes, but consistently. So, being effective, of course, requires you to work with others, to contribute to a team, and to be able to access the knowledge and the strengths of all the other members of your team. And the behaviors that you see there on screen, well, those are ways to demonstrate effectiveness when dealing with other members of the team. So this is what you're looking for. This is what it looks like to be very, very effective, to have all 10 of these habits operating on your behalf. And when you put them all together, this is how people describe the folks who display these habits. They see confidence. They see collaboration. They see people who seem to be empowered and who make others feel that way too. Now, you're the only one, of course, who can channel your own resources, work on your habits, and do the work it takes to be effective in all these ways. But I'm going to give you a shortcut. And that shortcut is to ask more questions in virtually any setting, not just questions for the sake of questions, but high quality, purposeful questions. So hang on, we've got some work to do on this. The first thing to do before you fire away with all your questions is to let people know. I'm going to ask you some questions because I'd like to understand what you're telling me a little more, that feedback that you've given me, so I have some questions about the specifics. Just signaling your intent makes questions a lot easier for people to receive and to not become defensive or resistant to. Asking questions puts you in the driver's seat. The person you're talking to, they're the navigator. They're going to give you some direction with their answers. But unlike some of the mythology out there about questions, you will not lose control of a conversation if you're asking purposeful questions and if you've set them up with your intention. You're going to be able to steer the conversation in ways that make you highly effective and very efficient because you're going to get information you need right away. You shape your intent, you tell people what your intention is, and then you steer the conversation with high-quality questions that are going to give you information that you need. Questions, in fact, that are going to give you value, information, and insights, but also value for the other party because you make them think. And you're going to be able to come back to them with something else, something more. Advance the sale, well, that means advance the conversation, advance the initiative, advance the idea, whatever it is that you're championing. In a way, you're selling. Whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, you can do it quicker by asking good questions. Good questions are constructed very deliberately. There are 3 types of questions. One of them actually isn't technically a question. It's a sentence that ends in a period, but it happens to be the most powerful of all. The weakest questions could be answered with a yes/no. These are close-ended questions. They start with helper verbs, words that need a little help. Because when you phrase a question with any of those 23 words, am, can, is, have, would, those could all be answered with a simple yes/no. And when you phrase questions that way, people will give you a shorter answer and they'll give it to you more quickly. Because using this word choice, putting these words at the front of your sentence, signals that that's what you want, that you want a quick and short answer. That's what people will give you. Of course, sometimes that's exactly what you want. You want confirmation, you want clarification, you just want to get a yes/no, then use close-ended questions. But mostly when you're looking to be effective, when you're trying to gather information, when you want to be inclusive in your decision-making processes, your questions do need to work a little harder. They need to invite people into the conversation more. And so close-ended questions would work against you if you're trying to yield the floor to others. So what you need instead are open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are the ones that start with just 7 words: who, what, where, when, why, which, and how. Those are the only words in the English language that start a sentence when the sentence ends in a question mark that cannot be answered with a yes or no. And this is actually measurable in brain scans. We know that people think a little longer and give more information when questions are phrased this way. But the third option, the most powerful of all, the one I highly recommend you consider using at least sometimes in these bigger conversations, it's not a question at all, it's a command statement. It has a period at the end and it starts with words like, help me understand, tell me about, describe what happened. What we often do that's a mistake is we take these powerful command statements, the ones that invite the most information, and we weaken them. We put words that are close-ended words in front of our great command statements. Instead of saying, tell me about, we say, would you tell me about? Instead of saying, help me understand, we say, can you help me understand? And that weakens the impact of the question. Instead of getting expansive, full answers, you've signaled to people that you want short, crisp answers. So you want to be very careful about that. Now, the contrast here, just to help you remember when to do intentional construction of each type is command statements are going to give you the most, closed-ended questions are going to give you the least. We've got a question posted, which is how to get people to think, to take time before they respond to the questions. Two ways. One is to use command statements more often because that automatically triggers a little more thought. Try this yourself, observe it, you'll see it. People will pause. They'll often say something like, "Oh, that's a really good question," before they answer. So use command statements, but also back there in your statement of intent, if you want people to think, frame it up that way. Say, I've got a few questions. I'm really wanting to access what's deeper in your mind. So take your time. I'm not in any hurry here. Whatever words you want to use, but just tell them that you're not looking for initial reactions, and then back that up by using questions that yield the floor to them. And command statements are the very best way to do that. Now, I'm going to show you in lightning speed here. I'm going to show you something that maybe you've never seen before. These are the 8 purposes for asking questions. They make the acronym DISCOVER. What I'm showing you is based on nearly 25 years of field research, asking people about questions that they were asked and what their reactions were, teaching people to be more purposeful, and then hearing back from them the impact of knowing the purposes of their own questions, and being able to mix it up, because there are 8 purposes, but most of us only use 3 or 4 of these. So when you can be more purposeful in the construction, like I have here for you on screen, and in mixing up the 8 different types of questions, you are going to be so much more effective in every conversation, and you'll soon see how everything I'm telling you helps you to be more effective in those 10 habits. So let me run through the 8. The first one is known as a data question, acronym of DISCOVER, so this is the D. You use this when you want to gather background information, when you want to find out what the facts are, when you want the answer you receive to be based on something that's proven, not speculative or opinion-based. We all do this pretty well. And these often are fairly short answers no matter how you craft the question, because it's just the facts. These questions often start with the who and the when, the which, the close-ended. Did you finish the budget? Well, that's a yes or no question. So data questions, we've all got this one mastered. The next one is not used as often. This is an issue question. And the purpose of an issue question is to find out how you're doing. In some way, how you're doing from the other party's perception and what you could be doing better. If there's already a problem that they've expressed, you're going to use issue questions reactively. They say to you, this is unacceptable. You say, help me understand what needs to be corrected. Help me understand what I could do differently. Right? You are asking questions to invite further criticism, perhaps, but you'd rather have that and get back on track than have it just be festering in their own mind and you never hearing about what really is the problem. Issue questions can also be used proactively. There's no problem. You've been working with somebody a long time, but you want to be proactive. So you say something like, hey, I just want to do a little service check here. We've been working together for 6 weeks now on this project. What, if anything, could I be doing differently that would help you? Or maybe it's, now that we've been working together a while, I kind of want to check in. What are your preferred methods of communication? Are those email recaps I'm sending working out, or would you rather see something different? These kinds of check-ins are not needy. They're actually relationship builders. And so take time to ask an issue question every once in a while. Here's another one that's not used very often. The S in DISCOVER is a solution question. Anytime you want to gauge the interest that people have in an idea, before you put the idea out there, maybe you ask, what are your thoughts about? Or Um, what's the group's experience been with? And you just sort of test it. You plant the seed for the new idea and you gauge the initial reaction to these alternatives that you're suggesting. Really powerful kind of question. The next two go hand in hand. We often ask them in the reverse order, but since the word is discover, I'll present them with the C and then the O. The consequence question is a question we ask to help people see for themselves or share with us what the potential downsides of something might be. Maybe they're not going to take a certain action, and we are concerned about that, so we want to get them thinking about the downsides. We call attention to potential problems. And then what we're doing with the O is we're understanding the hopes, dreams, plans, goals, visions for the future. The outcome question makes people smile. The consequence question makes them reflect and frown a little bit. We want to get both sides of that coin. We want to understand both the goals that people have and the obstacles or consequences or downsides of not achieving those goals so that we can help them out in both ways. And we can bring their awareness to both sides as well. Here's my favorite. This is a value question, the V. I always want to know when people want several things, which one is most important, which one is most urgent, why does this one matter? Understanding from other people's perspective what is important and why is really a great way to accelerate your effectiveness and your impact. You're not going to then follow up on the wrong thing, the one that's less value or priority. You're not going to respond to just the easy, convenient thing. You're going to be zooming right in where it matters most to that individual or team. Here's another powerful one that's not used all that often. To explain this one, I'm going to ask you to think about when you go to buy a new car. You walk onto the lot, and one of the first things the salespeople try to get you to do is to take a test drive. And they do that because they want you to have the experience of those cushy leather seats and that new car smell and the perfectly placed cup holder and the power of the engine, the quiet ride. They want you to experience all of that because they know that you're subconsciously contrasting that to your current ride. And the superior experience is a big part of what's going to sell you on that car. We don't get to do that with everything that we represent. Certainly ideas, we really can't have people test drive our ideas all that easily. So we want to replicate, though, the contrast. We want to ask example questions that get them thinking about current state versus desired future state, the pros and cons of status quo, the ways that things could be, and how that would be an improvement over the way things are. So we ask questions to get people talking, to get people thinking, and as close as possible experiencing what those contrasts would entail. And last but not least, our rationale questions. These are questions where you want to know anything at all about the decision criteria people are using as they evaluate ideas. This committee, when it makes a decision, what will be the criteria that will be used? Who's going to be involved in this decision? What do you need from me to make it easier to enter into your decision-making process? Anything at all related to a decision is a rationale question. Now, we did go through these at pretty quick pace. Don't worry, if this is intriguing to you, if you'd like more information, there are lots of ways to get it. Visit the website peoplefirstps.com or get in touch with me directly. Subscribe to our blog and our newsletter. Read the book, Discover Questions. Whatever you want to follow up on, I'll point you towards lots of resources for any of the 10 habits or for any of the question techniques that we described here. The takeaway today, despite the pace, the takeaway is to get you thinking about one little thing, because that's the starting point. One little thing that you can be doing differently or more to become more effective. And one of those things is to just be curious enough to follow up on something. That's the right place to start. I'm Deb Calvert, and I so appreciate you spending time with me here for this presentation. Take advantage of all of those resources that I've offered you. Don't forget to give me a review and some feedback, and I look forward to talking to you soon.